Episode 50, The Curious Case of Wallace Weems, originally posted November 4, 2017. In the year 2007, the first live-action Transformers movie was released and made tons of money for the toy company Hasbro. Hoping to duplicate this financial success, they fast-tracked a live movie for arguably their next biggest boy toy franchise, G.I. Joe. While for the most part, Joe fans were quite excited for a live-action movie, when news came out that the actor Marlon Wayans was given a main role in the film, a good number started to genuinely wonder if the producers actually knew what they were doing. Now, to be fair, while there wasn't specifically anything wrong with Marlon Wayans as an actor, there were a couple of reasons why his inclusion in the G.I. Joe movie left fans scratching their heads. First and foremost, Marlon Wayans wasn't really known for being an action star. He was mainly a comedian starring in many lowbrow but entertaining movies such as White Chicks, Little Man, and Scary Movie. Possibly the closest movie to an action-adventure genre that he was in was the major commercial flop in 2000's Dungeons & Dragons. And even there, he played a comedic character named Snails. But what got everyone more confused was when it was announced that he would play the G.I. Joe character, Ripcord. Before this announcement, fans naturally speculated that Wayans would be playing one of the more popular African-American characters in the franchise, such as the Ranger and original members Stalker, Chief Medic Doc, or even Heavy Machine Gunner Roadblock. Instead, he was cast as Ripcord, who was white. And just to hammer down the point that he was indeed playing that Ripcord, he went by the real name of the original character, which was probably one of the whitest of names you could come up with, Wallace Weems. To add even more to the confusion, Ripcord was at best a third-string character. Literally, no one was expecting him to be featured in the movie or cared if he was left out. There was a circulating rumor that the producers originally wanted Wayans to play Stalker, who was oftentimes portrayed as the Joe Leader Duke's right-hand man. But they figured the name Stalker wouldn't fly as the name of a good guy. Still, Stalker wasn't exactly known for being the funny guy. But as Ripcord, Wayans did play the right-hand man to Channing Tatum's Duke, and inexplicably, the love interest to Rachel Nichols' Scarlet. And as if that wasn't enough, his primary specialty in the movie was also changed. As his name would suggest, the original Ripcord's role was that of a high-altitude, low-opening, or halo jumper. But in the movie, his specialty was changed to that of being a pilot. So really, it would have made more sense for him to play any other numerous jet pilots in the Joe ranks such as Ace, Slipstream, or even Maverick. Anyway, to be fair to the original character, while hardly being featured in the cartoon, Ripcord actually did have a pretty memorable story arc in the 80s Marvel comic run. In one of the earlier issues of the series, Ripcord meets and gets into a relationship with a civilian named Candy Apple, who worked as a children's birthday party mascot named Bongo the Bear. Sorry, I know mentioning these particular details is rather pointless, but I just had to do it. Anyway, the relationship doesn't last very long as Candy gets frustrated with Cobra agents constantly attacking her and Ripcord, and he is unfortunately unable to explain why. You know, the whole secret American task force thing. It is later revealed though that she is actually the daughter of an undercover Cobra Crimson Guard agent, something she was not aware of and is taken into Joe custody because of it. She is broken out by the Dreadnought Buzzer, and so Ripcord sets off to rescue her. He goes on an unauthorized mission to Cobra Island thinking Candy has been brought there and comes across Zartan in the jungle, who ends up pretty much kicking his ass. Mutant assassin trumps paratrooper every time. Being a master of disguise, Zartan switches identities with Ripcord in order to infiltrate G.I. Joe headquarters. Ironically, chalking up the physical differences to his master of disguise shtick, the Cobra Troopers bring Ripcord to their super secret base located in the fabricated small town of Springfield, thinking that he is Zartan. So in the end, Ripcord manages to send the location of Cobra's Springfield base, and the cavalry comes in guns a-blazing, laying waste to the base and successfully rescuing Ripcord. Unfortunately, unbeknownst to Ripcord, Candy suffers a crueler fate, losing her life in an incident involving a drunk driver, a ninja master, and a bloodthirsty Cobra operative with a portable missile launcher. Anyway, as a kid, I remember really getting involved with Ripcord's story of being a Joe trapped behind enemy lines. And so I, for one, was bothered that the character that I knew was essentially, and in my opinion, needlessly changed, and the other more deserving African-American characters such as the aforementioned Stalker, Doc, and Roadblock were left out. But what was done, and to be fair, while the live-action movie wasn't that great, Marlon Wayans wasn't terrible as Ripcord. And like the idea or not, moving forward, Ripcord in all cartoons and comics after followed that movie's portrayal. One notable updated version of Ripcord was featured in the G.I. Joe cartoon Renegades in 2010. The cartoon revolved around a new premise where the actual G.I. Joe team, as we knew, didn't formally exist yet. So the main characters in the show were soldiers trying to expose the super secret organization of Cobra, while at the same time being on the run from the US military after they were framed for a crime that they didn't commit. Sound familiar? Yeah, it was a new premise for the franchise, but hardly very original. Anyway, one of the members of this A-team was Ripcord, who was surprisingly and seemingly killed off in the first episode. It was later revealed towards the end of the series that he actually survived and spent the whole time in a Cobra lab being experimented on and turned into a bio-viper. Think human crossed with an amoeba. Anyway, moving into the toy front, in an attempt to appease fans of both the original and new Ripcord, they ended up confusing collectors even more. Hasbro doubled down on the toys for the live movie, so little plastic Marlon Wayans Ripcord action figures were everywhere. Curiously though, at around the same time, as part of the 25th anniversary toy line, Hasbro released a special 7-pack of Joes, which included a Joe that looked mysteriously like the original green camouflage Ripcord figure that first came out in 1984. Of course, to avoid any confusion, Hasbro couldn't straight out call this guy Ripcord, and instead used another name that just happened to belong to another Joe member, Altitude. And just as if that wasn't confusing enough, his code name wasn't the only thing changed. This new figure's real name was changed to Philip Arndt, who was yet another existing Joe Halo jumper named Freefall. But for all intents and purposes, this guy was definitely the original white Ripcord, Wallace Weems. Talk about a major identity crisis. Nowadays, it's quite normal for many of our childhood heroes from comics and toys and cartoons to have their ethnicity changed in order to appeal to a more diverse audience. But back in 2007, it wasn't that common, so the change to Ripcord was a definite head-scratcher. And who knows? It could have very well been a case of Marlon Wayans just picking out a character because he thought the name sounded cool. But if there's anything positive gained out of all these changes, it's that Marlon Wayans managed to flesh out an otherwise plain character, and his inclusion in the movie made the name Ripcord more known with the fandom. So does anyone else find Marlon Wayans' Ripcord inclusion in the live-action G.I. Joe movie rather odd? Or how about, did anyone else here find the live G.I. Joe action movie really good? Let me know in the comments below and tell me your story. Thanks for watching Stories from the Toy Shelf Redux. If you enjoyed this story, please click on the like button and subscribe to the channel to help me tell more. Until the next one.